Hi, I'm Alex Caston with UMGC. Welcome to our session titled Cybersecurity Concerns for Online and Hybrid Classes. Before we start, I just wanted to say a little bit about Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a collaborative effort between the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the National Cybersecurity Alliance to raise awareness about the importance of cybersecurity and to ensure that all Americans have the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. The University of Maryland Global Campus and the Center for Security Studies are proud to be champions in support of this essential online safety awareness and education initiative. This year's theme of Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart empowers individuals and organizations to own their role in protecting their part of cyberspace. With that, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Dr. Chike Patrick Chike and Olubusaya Ladelukun, as they address this topic. And right now, I will turn things over to Dr. Chike. Oh, one more thing, sorry. Please, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat feature and we'll get to them after the presentation. Dr. Chike?
Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, today we will be looking at the cybersecurity concerns for online and hybrid classes. On the first slide, we have the highlights. We'll be looking at the issues and challenges. We will also be addressing the 3 key points of the concerns, and we look at the recommendations, and then we end up with the summary. This is just for you to have a look at the recommended security model for e-learning that has the planning, implementation, evaluation, maintenance in place, all to be controlled by the top management. So we will visit this slide at the end of So just take a quick view of it. We're coming back to it. Now we'll be looking at the issues and challenges from the e-learning provider, that's the institution, and the students' perspectives. E-learning challenges is everywhere you turn into, especially due to the pandemic situation that we are going through. Even before the pandemic, it has had challenges. So we are looking at this now from the learner's provider perspective, that's the institution or the organization offering the e-learning, and from the users or students' perspective. Then we'll be looking at the 3 factors here under the provider perspective: efficient infrastructure, quality learning materials, and high cost. So looking at the efficient infrastructure, you know that implementing e-learning is not an easy task. And despite that it has many benefits, e-learning also faces challenges. So when you look at this, organizations grapple with various technology issues, such as providing efficient infrastructure, such like a bandwidth and connectivity to the students, because these students depend on all this infrastructure, on all these facilities to be successful with online materials, online learning materials. So, and for the fact that this is done on the web, the organization offering this have to have viable and infrastructure in order to support the students' learning. The quality learning material, you see, has to do with the delivery of high bandwidth content, like the video, the audio, but all these things, all these features are problematic to students. So providing these materials and also lack of quality contents and even human-computer interface, where students have to have to sit at a particular area, or to sit, some of them sit in Starbucks to get their lectures, so depending on where they are. So sometimes it becomes fuzzy for them. So it is a problem. Providing the real and adequate quality material has become an issue. So now, the high cost. Looking at the infrastructure, if you don't have adequate infrastructure and you don't have quality learning materials, the students are going to have issues learning. But providing these infrastructures, it comes at a high cost. So sometimes organizations don't have enough budget to have high-end infrastructure. So they come up with what they can afford, and that makes it a little bit harder for students to learn, because they're not getting the quality education that they should get. Now, looking at the user's perspective, we talk about the readiness. Users, in this case now, students are experiencing the challenges of readiness, as many of them lack commitment, self-discipline, and skills. Some of them don't have the motivation. And if it happens that they are not getting what they need, they might not log on. Now, there is what we call technology acceptance model term that has the perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. So if the students do not have what they get from the school, there's likelihood that they are not going to tap into the program. Some of them will register, and when they see how things are going, they will withdraw. So we are going to address these concerns in 3 key points: communication, access, and security. Communication concerns. Students and professors fail to establish rapport on one-on-one friendly relations with one another. Professors' office hours are eliminated in online mode, especially during this pandemic. So when you have online learning, you get away from the traditional model where you can go in to see your professor and discuss and chat with him. Students not receiving timely response or feedback from their professors. Students' lack of effective communication strategy or mechanism. Some students cannot even communicate. They have assignments to work on. They don't have that motivation. They don't even communicate with the instructor to let him know what is going on. So that's a factor. Students' lack of discipline to engage in active online learning. Like I said before, many students lack the discipline and the maturity to engage in active learning. Sometimes they start well and they end up poorly. Next, access concerns. Students lack of laptops and stable internet access. Some students, because we still have indigent students that cannot even provide laptops for their online training or education. And some of them that do, they don't have stable internet access because they are not paying their bills, or they are living with their mother or their parents, and they cannot afford to pay for service providers. So they are normally being cut off. And in the process, they end up all at McDonald's or friend's house or in any outlet just to get access to the internet. Students' laptops and other mobile devices lack necessary patches and updates to perform their workload. They don't patch them, and on the other end, the schools do not have something to check if when the students are connecting with their laptops or mobile devices, to check for viruses and also check whether they have the necessary patches. So in the process, they could infect the institutional network. Technical issues. Students experiencing difficulties in logging into their school portal to access resources. It happens all the time. inappropriate or harmful material being shared on online platform or during live streaming session. They have to control what is being shared online, especially during live streaming session. The likelihood that students could provide or dabble with inappropriate or present inappropriate material during live streaming, and it's all out there. So it's live. Next, time management. Students lack self-discipline to manage their time very well, and they also lack motivation to focus. Like I said before, sometimes they start well and they end poorly, using every excuse. Next, security concerns. So I will turn over to Busara.
Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good day. Um, just to continue the presentation, security concerns for online hybrid classes is defined in terms of authentication, availability, integrity, and confidentiality. Next slide, please. Authentication. Attackers still uses authentication or information eavesdrops to insecure communication. Availability, intruders use DOS or DDoS to attack victims. So this will prevent them from being able to, you know, see what's going on with their network, with their assignments and things like that. And integrity, unauthorized users alter content of information by executing malicious code. Confidentiality, insecure storage, information, and leakage. So these as far as confidentiality, when you have insecure storage and information leakage, you're more prone to have more security loopholes. So attackers can use this to um, to crash your system. Attackers can use this to get into your network because you have insecure storage and information leakage, and they can also use this to retrieve information from your network. Next slide, please. The following issues are common in online hybrid environment: deliberate software attacks such as viruses, worms, and DOS. DOS is basically denial of service. You have technical failures and errors such as bugs and coding problems. Acts of human error and failure, accidents, student and employee mistakes. So you do have incidents where human failure is implementation of security concerns where um, you know us not being able to do what we're supposed to do, us as humans having an accident can also lead to attackers, attacking our systems. You also have deliberate act of espionage or trespass, such as unauthorized access or data collection. So unauthorized access or data collection, which are basically um, maybe an individual or an attacker, having access to a portal or a page or a system where they shouldn't have access to, and that can always allow attackers to get information, for attackers to use that loophole to corrupt the whole network from just that one loophole. You also have deliberate hardware failures, um, and this ranges in multiple ways from the system, from the system crashing. You also have, like, let's say the computer not being able to work due to it falling down, or the system facing a hit where you can't physically use it because maybe the keyboard is not working, maybe the computer isn't working due to this. Next slide, please. Deliberate act of theft, illegal confiscation of equipment or information, deliberate act of information extortion, such as ransomware, blackmail for information disclosure. Ransomware is basically an attack where attackers encrypt your data and basically ask you to pay a specific amount of money to unencrypt your data. So basically release your data back to you. And if you in some cases if you don't do that, your data is at huge risk. Where you can have data of students, you can have social security numbers of students, teachers, and things like that. So you do not want um, information extortion to happen, to happen underneath your watch. And you also have compromises to intellectual property, such as piracy and copyright infringement. We also have technological obsolescence, such as inadequate or outdated technologies and equipment. This is also known as legacy systems. So a lot of times when you do have outdated technologies, they're usually not compatible with the latest systems, with the latest software that are needed to run in the environment. So you always need to update your hardware. You always need to update your software so that everything can be in sync, and they can work functionally. You also have quality of services from ISPs, Power ISP slash WAN, which is wide area network, and ISP basically means internet service providers, and such as Comcast, um, Verizon, AT&T, and you also have and so on and so forth. So you also have their service issues as well to focus on. Next slide, please. Threat modeling approach for e-learning systems called from threat model for user security in e-learning system. So this table right here basically presents how different attacks affect different parts of the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, availability, and you also have authentication as well. So underneath availability, you have denial of service, and that affects on the integrity side. You have malicious code attacks. On the confidentiality side, you have group session eavesdropping. So you do have uh, so attackers can stay in the middle where they retrieve your information, and they're basically eavesdropping on what information is being sent from one server to another server, and that right there, you're not confident that your information is being passed to the right party. You also have brute force. You also have brute force attack. This is basically an attack of your password, where attackers just keep on guessing your password. So with this, they can actually, and if your password isn't strong enough, they can actually enter your system, and they're able to weave their way throughout your system. You also have nose attacks, message injection. You have group session traffic analysis, dictionary attacks, and dictionary attacks is basically a type of attack where um, a a an attacker use dictionary words such as such as intelligent. For example, you can use the word intelligent basically to guess your password. If he thinks that your password is intelligent, he would try the word intelligent and try to enter your system. So you want to make sure that your password aren't just words. They're also filled with words, numbers, and special characters. And you also have line attacks, traffic modification, group identity closure, key management attacks. So you want to make sure that where you store your keys for encryption are actually in a secure place. So you do not want your keys to be retrieved by attackers. If they are that way, they're able to get your they're able to go into your system and corrupt different data that you have. You also have network infrastructure and attacks such as routers, switches, power hubs, DNS servers, traffic deletion, traffic rerouting, and as I explained earlier, traffic rerouting is basically an attacker, sitting in the middle and basically rerouting which way a specific information is going to, where the information is going to. So they're basically rerouting it. They're rerouting the traffic. You have replay attacks. You have traffic misdelivery, non-repudiation, forgery attacks, session hijacking. We also have man-in-the-middle attacks, and these are popular attacks that attackers use all over the world to break into different systems. Next slide, please. So students without internet access, free Wi-Fi. So yes, cafes, restaurants, airports to work on their assignments, exposing their machines and university network to hackers and cyber criminals. So oftentimes you have free Wi-Fi at cafes, restaurants, and airports. So with those free Wi-Fi, sometimes they're not secure. So with that way, an attacker can just basically sit, in one of these locations and just retrieve all your information, just because the Wi-Fi isn't secure. And you have students' ubiquitous use of social media on campus, which enables the hosting and spreading of malware and viruses through social media sites, making it practically impossible to permanently block access to social media on school network. So you want to ensure that students aren't, student social media use aren't a loophole for attackers into the school's network. You also have students lacking appropriate authentication mechanisms such as two-factor authentication, also known as 2FA. So implementing two-factor authentication is a secure way for students to log into their system, basically saying that, okay, this is who I actually am. So we have two layers of protection to confirm that a student is who he or she says he or she is. Lack of strong password criteria for students and professors. So like I said earlier, you want to have a strong password criteria. You want to focus on the length. You want to focus on the password having words, numbers, and special characters, so that way it isn't a password that a hacker can easily guess. It isn't a password that a system can easily attack and guess. So you want a strong password criteria for students and professors. Next slide, please. Students' laptop and other mobile devices lacking necessary patches and updates to perform their workload. So patches are basically updates so that students can utilize their mobile devices, so that they can synchronize with the network. So you always want to consistently update devices, not just mobile devices, but other systems as well, so that they're up to date and they can be utilized correctly. And you also have Zoom bombing, which is unauthorized users gaining access to Zoom calls through fraudulent online credentials and disrupting with inappropriate content, eavesdropping, or collecting sensitive information. Ever since the pandemic has started, the use of Zoom and other teleconferencing software systems has increased. So hackers know this, so they've been using that to collect people's information. So we want to ensure that our Zoom calls are protected. We want to ensure that that we have a system that basically encrypts these calls and ensure that hackers cannot, get into our Zoom calls and collect information. And also, students use their own device, personal online service account, and own installed applications to connect to university network, often without the university's knowledge or approval, making it difficult to manage. So without the knowledge of the university of which students use their own devices, it's hard for the university to know how to manage the network, so that we aren't opening ourselves to different loopholes that attackers can use. Next slide, please. Inadvertent disclosure of confidential or inappropriate information during live stream session, poor data governance. Next slide. And recommendations.
All right.
I'll pass it to Dr. Chike.
Okay. Thank you, Busai.
You're welcome.
So we'll be looking at the recommendations based on 3 key points: communications, access, and security. On the communication side, we have, if you enhance the instant messenger, such as like the University of Maryland Global Campus, they have Leo, and if they make it interactive, for example, so where students could interact directly with the instructor. So that's one part. And then also where professors can also use the learning management system, such as Blackboard or whatever management system they are using, to where they can send the charts directly to the students' email and mobile phones for interactive sessions. So these are possibilities. It doesn't mean that the schools may, or the institutions may have the policies not to engage in these activities. So it's up to organizations. Now, developing an instant messaging mobile app that reroute students, that can reroute to students' email. You know, like if a professor wants to say something or want to pass up, send a message out there. Sometimes students, they can use that, develop that app to send it straight to the students' email. Many a time, students don't even look at or regularly check their announcements. So that will be another way to send them that signal, instant signal. Professors can also set time limits and send reminders. And in the spirit of the pandemic, COVID-19, organizations and institutions can also relax some hard-core deadlines to allow students more time to work on assignments. Next. Allow library internet access to students while implementing social distancing rules and regulations. This is some sort of a hybrid, and some schools have online library, but the students have to have internet access to tap into that. But now some schools may reopen. Some of them have hybrid, where they can allow students once in a while to come in and then have access to their library. So as of now, social distancing rules need to be implemented. Provide Wi-Fi students by partnering with ISPs to boost e-learning. If they can do that, if the institutions can partner with organizations like or service providers like Verizon or Comcast to provide the Wi-Fi to students, maybe at subscribe rates, that would be fine. Enhance IT support team to provide longer hours to faculty and students, especially now that everybody seems to be struggling with this pandemic. Providing support to post-recorded Zoom sessions online for students to review. This will be an added advantage. Not many schools and or institutions provide this, but if it's something that can be done, that would also be fine. Developing a sandbox or thin client infrastructure for students to log on and engage in hands-on practice with information security tools. This is like a sandbox. They used to have something like a Dell Wise. It's a thin client that students could log on, and then and we provide them with the tools. They will play with some sort of virtual machines where they can log on and do the real life cybersecurity troubleshooting and learning skills. Next, access. Ensuring that there is no personal or sensitive data visible during live streaming sessions or meeting. It happens all the time where all of a sudden something speaks up and sensitive information is relayed on a live streaming session, sometimes it could also be inappropriate. Ensuring that cameras and videos are disabled when the session or meeting has concluded. Next. Now we'll be looking at the security point of it. The use of IDS, that's intrusion detection system, and firewall to detect attacks and provide regular backups. That will take care of our availability attack. Also, intrusion prevention system can also be used together with IDS to make sure that if there's any attack, it could also block it and then give an alert, because IDS is after the effect. Authentication attack can be checkmated by use of biometric-based security systems and application of secure web browser, like the HTTPS. The use of something like a smart card, iris scan, retina scan. So all those things could also be used to identify a particular user, authenticated user. Integrity attack could also be prevented by use of hash and digital signature algorithm to prevent modification and alteration, modification of information and data. And while confidentiality attack can be countered using strong encryption, like cryptographic mechanisms and authorization. Next. Establishing a robust information security management. This is the job of the top management. The school has to have a mission statement. They have to have that vision of enhancing their security posture. Laptops could also be, and mobiles could also be hardened, and by loading them with appropriate applications and patches so that they will be ready to connect to the internet. Also load them with antivirus, and right now most of the laptops or desktops or devices they're using could be encrypted wholly, like a whole disk, using whole disk encryption. Implementing strong password authentication using a combination of alphas and numerics, and two-factor authentication can also prevent attacks. Deploying security patches and updates to run when students' computers are online. This is to ensure that they don't have virus, or they are not targets. So, like when students use on-patch systems to attack to the network, to attach to the school network, attackers could just lay by the side and use them as a gateway to the school network. This is a thing that you don't want to have. So organizations should ensure that they can develop this particular part to ensure that each time the students' computers touch the network, they are screened for viruses. Next. Also, developing a security management model for e-learning system and implementing a cybersecurity information governance for online learning system. So, information governance is the issue, is the job of the top management. They have to come up with a security model. How are they going to implement cybersecurity in this online context? When when most of the systems are outside and they get into the school network. Okay, this is not something that everything is on the campus and they can control it from here. So it's not the job of administrators, it's not the job of security analysts, it's not the job of systems engineers. The top management, the executive management, they have to come up with that management model. So the CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, or the ISOs, They are the middle manpower. They work with the top management to develop that security management model. Deploying also network access control, something like NetShield, Fortinet, to defend organizations' perimeter network by blocking or stopping attacks before the call. Like when students try to log on to the school network and they don't have the appropriate authentication or appropriate patches, the NAC, network access control, should be able to stop any of those or any attack that might come through them. Institutions should also carefully review their platform's privacy settings and checking that online platforms are age appropriate. This is a situation where you have, let's say, the K-12 type of online, where students where kids or children don't go outside of what they're supposed to do to download or to watch inappropriate materials. Now, enhanced data governance, deploying data loss prevention mechanisms to monitor, detect, and prevent data breaches and exfiltrations. When they have that in perspective, like you have most of all these data breaches might not occur. We still know about Edward Snowden that had to copy data from the network and to his hard drive and then get them out. So I don't know what happened at National Security Administration, but something like this can monitor when folks start like copying files from the network, from the school network to their own machine, or taking files out from unauthorized files to their own machine, because like all these machines are online, some of them are outside the school network. So not all, making sure that the users have access to what they should have using least privilege. So the data prevention loss mechanism, like semantic, checkpoint, or SolarWinds, they are very good at monitoring this and also to prevent data breaches here and there. Next. Now, this is the recommended process, or what we call model for higher institutions. It could also be copied to the K-12, but this is where you have the top management of the organization. That's the institution here. They are in charge of making this making sure that the security posture of the organization is strong. And if they adopt this model where they have planning, implementation, maintenance, and evaluation, they will be off to a good start with online and hybrid learning. What happens here is the top management will, which is the school administration, the school executives, they are the ones that will have make those policy statements and create that awareness, risk awareness at the corporate level, at the top level. And also they are the ones that will initiate information management and policies. So they will be engaged in the planning. So where they do not plan and where they do not take the initiative, is going security of that organization will be poor. So they do all the planning. They are going to be the senior leadership. They are the ones to push the buttons and to make sure, like that the downstream, like the network administrators, the security administrators, they do what they need to do. They need to tighten the policies. They are the ones to implement. So without the senior leadership, that implementation will be porous. So all those network administrators, and they will tighten every loophole. they are the ones that do the implementation alongside with more input from the chief information officer or the chief security officer down to the chief security officer, down to network officers, down to network engineers. So once they get the plan out, the next is to implement. And when you look at the implementation, once it has been implemented, they have to go back to evaluate what they have implemented, make sure that the mechanism is working, making sure that the risks have been evaluated, and the handling process. Like, okay, how do you deal with data when when a server is being decommissioned and it still has data? What is going to happen? You know, how do you do the scrubbing? How do you do the removal of the data from the particular device? You know, and once it goes out from evaluation, it still has to be maintained. The network administrators, they have to ensure that the system is doing what it's supposed to be doing, making sure that maintaining secure network solutions and making sure that every part of the network is covered, every part of the system is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Maintaining it, it's not like a one-day thing or a two-day thing, it's a continuous exercise. So at the end of the day, is this model falls on the control of the top leadership. They have to establish that framework, make sure that it works, make sure that they organize things, communicate with every part, with the stakeholders. So if they don't do that and make sure that the requirements for the secure system are met, then the administrators are not ready they will not manage the security systems effectively. Next. So in summary, we know that e-learning cannot take place without the internet. So the internet is still the backbone of e-learning. So service providers play an important part in this. But unfortunately, some students are indigent that they cannot pay for the service providers. So what happens? They relax, or they start hopping to where they can get internet access. Now, top management organizations, institutions should establish a robust information security management policy with enhanced authentication and encryption techniques. Students should also use advanced mobile devices and portable internet access systems with upgraded versions of operating systems. But unfortunately, they could also infect the institution network. Now, institutions should develop new strategies for accommodating students' learning, especially during the pandemic, without compromising security and privacy. How can they do this without compromising the school privacy and security? So it's an issue. Okay, next. Provide cybersecurity awareness training. This is what institutions should do. They should provide cybersecurity awareness training programs that would also highlight techniques for avoiding cyber attacks and data breaches. They should also develop other robust mechanisms to engage in continuous education without being encumbered by communication, access, and security issues. And finally, institutions should deploy effective data governance mechanisms to prevent information leakage, filtration of data out of the school network, and also preventing data breaches. Next. That brings us to questions and answers.
Thank you, panelists. That was a really informative presentation. We do have some questions, and we have about 10, 12 minutes for questions. I'll start with a question that goes back to your discussion about the learning experience. We can attend to technical and network issues, but how do we teach self-discipline, the self-discipline needed for virtual environments? And beyond that, what can be done to help students with learning challenges get the most out of online instruction? Do you have any insight into those areas?
That goes back to, like, depending on the level of the students, their parenting, So I have some kids here that have been struggling with online education. So I try as much as possible to make sure that they get engaged and get them all they need to do and get them set for all the activities. Some of them, they can disengage, lose focus, and they don't even relate. So part of it is we have to do with parenting, and the other part will be to create more awareness, especially now that almost everybody is, every student is engaged in one online activity or the other. So coming from that angle is making sure, giving more education, giving more security awareness training, giving more, creating more awareness on the do's and don'ts for online learning, and that will help. But the school is something that the school have to organize, and the parents have to tap in and make sure that is implemented, especially at home. So the school does their its own part, the parents do their own part.
Going to that question again, I'll like to say that it's more about communication to get students involved, and also having due dates, set up. Because as a student, from a student perspective, looking back, and when I first started, there were you know there were due dates, but we didn't know like when the due date were, because UMGC didn't really had a hardcore deadline then, but there was a time where um, professors expected you to be finished. So if the professors can communicate and say that, okay, I expect you to be finished by this time, it, that would be great. I believe that the students will feel pressure, but at the same time too, with this current pandemic, a lot of students aren't able to get what they want to get done on time due to internet access and all those things. But then again, we can also have a system where professors and students are communicating back and forth, like we said, the LMS, we talked about the Leo software where you can communicate back and forth with your professors, like as if it's it's a text message. I feel like students will be more engaged, will know their status in the class, and also it comes down to self-discipline as well, because the professor can't hold your hand throughout. You have to do some things within your own self to say that, okay, you know what, I want to actually really be engaged in this, even though there are thousands of things going on in my life or outside of me. I have to be focused. So it also boils down to self-discipline as well.
Great, thank you. We have a few more technical questions that I'll get into. Here's the first of those. Although UMGC is a pioneer in online learning modalities, many of us have depended more on free tools and online services in the transition to remote working following COVID-19. Many of these services and software can include user tracking, poor privacy controls, data governance issues, or even malware. So the question is, how can faculty make informed choices regarding these services? And are there implications for faculty in terms of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act? Anyone?
I can answer the first part of that question,
Okay.
but
Right.
I believe Mr. Chike will be more knowledgeable as far as the FERPA part. But I'll say that to be more aware of it, I think we have to implement a system where students, students have like package softwares where they have, they're able to use different tools so that students won't need to go outside of to use a third-party software and things like that. And also, we can educate students on cybersecurity more on a more, I'll say, maybe monthly basis, and let students know that okay, if you see so and so happening, if you see, for example, email, a phishing email, you know, ignore it. If you see any email that talks about UMGC but doesn't come from a UMGC's email address, please do ignore it. And also implement the necessities of cybersecurity concerns, such as password, like we discussed, such as the use of third-party software and other cybersecurity concerns that students might face. So it's more about, I'll say that the school actually, you know, talking more about these issues that the school has seen in the past and what the school is actually presently seeing, so that students are currently updated about different issues. And I'll pass it on to Dr. Chike to give his own input.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. In terms of that, I believe schools have their own policies, especially on what they should post and what they should not, on how the students should be seeing and what they should not be seeing. So most of all those things are very well outlined in the school policies. So let's say, for example, there is a policy on personally identifiable information. There is a policy on protected health information, PHI. So, and there are also some HIPAA concerns. So most of all these things are being taken care of from the institutional level and then passed down to the professors. So by being professors, they are the ones that will also take it down to the level to the students that they are teaching. Also, it's all much about education. Educating them, creating that awareness of the do's and don'ts.
Okay, great. Thank you. We may have time for a couple more. What best practices, guidelines, and/or recommendations are being communicated to organizations that use web-based tools for online classrooms? And who is responsible for communicating these resources? I guess, in other words, is there an approved list of tools for use with online classrooms? Is there any kind of governing body out there that's approved, develop some best practices?
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Chike, sorry.
Most of all these things are now in a bubble, and depending on the schools,
right?
The schools choose what they want to present. They choose what they want the students to see. They choose the tools they want the students to learn. So school A or institution A or to B, they are very different. But it's more about creating that cybersecurity hygiene, creating that cybersecurity awareness. More and more training should be given to even to the students, to the staff, because also the staff that will be coming up with these contents is not just the professors or the students. The staff also should also know about all these regulations and the compliances and best practice. So it's like everybody is involved in this. At this point in time, there'll be guidelines, yes, but it boils down to individual schools, what they want their students to see. In terms of security tools, there are security tools, IT security classes. There are many of them out there, but some are very destructive. So while it works for school A, it might not work for school B. So there are certain tools that I can only tell my students to use, or let them know about this, and then tell them, look, if you use this one, this is what is going to happen. This is what is going to happen. So, like I said, yes, there could be a guidelines, but it depends on schools and what they want their students to see and learn.
Great.
So going back to that, sorry, Alex, going back to that question, and it could also fall underneath the cybersecurity framework that the school wants to follow. You have multiple cybersecurity framework out there. You have NIST. I can't name all of it, but I know about NIST. I know in the healthcare industry they also follow a different type of framework. So it also depends on which framework the school wants to follow, and then from there on, the school can move forward on as to how to protect its students and professors and faculty members.
Great. Thank you for those suggestions. And I just want to mention that UMGC is a leader in online education, employs many of the best practices for student learning in virtual environments that you all mentioned today. Just real quickly before we close, and I'll give you guys like 30 seconds on this. This question, do you think schools are doing enough to teach cybersecurity awareness to students and teachers? Just quick hit on that question for both of you.
Yes, I think schools are trying their best. It depends on different approaches for different schools. It might not be 100% efficient, but they are trying. They're sending out materials to staff, to students on cybersecurity hygiene, what to do and what not to do, how to do this and how not to do this. Also taking care of social engineering aspects of it. Yes, they are on it. It might not be 100% efficient, but yes, they are trying.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'll say that this we can always improve. I think schools can always improve as far as educating students, because gradually there are always new attacks coming in. There are always new things that attackers develop to corrupt different systems. So I believe that moving forward, schools can talk about these attacks. I believe that they're also trying their best, but I believe that we need to schools need to put their foot on the pedal, and then like teach students differently about what's going on as far as the cybersecurity world, so that moving forward, the students can see what to do and what not to do. Maybe once every 6 months or so, maybe have a discussion such as this about what's new in the cybersecurity field. But it just depends on the school how they want to take that approach.
Great, thank you.
I have one more. I just have one more thing to say here. Like for schools, they could also tap into the needs. Cybersecurity framework. They could also be looking at, especially for incident response and all these things that are happening now. They could also be looking at NIST SP 800 61 version release 2. That will help them a little bit more about all these incident response, and how in case of in any situation where how they can prevent attacks and how to respond to attacks if it happens. So, okay. But that would be a very great resource. It's NIST SP 861 version 2. and also tapping into the NIST cybersecurity framework. That's the
This
best way.
cybersecurity framework.
Yeah,
Great.
that's the best way to go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both for
Thank you.
your time and your information. Great panel. To our audience, we hope this session has provided you with insights into taking proactive steps to enable lasting positive cybersecurity behavior change at home and at work. You can sign up to learn more from UMGC leaders and special cybersecurity industry guests in the coming weeks at umgc.edu/cybersmart. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.